So this being today Valentine's Day, I'm suggesting that we take the theme The Lovers. I sent out an email with a variety of images, and I'm going to make some suggestions, but I'd like to leave it, pretty open for you to interpret in ways that you would like to. So I've got a few resources here, some of which I'll share with you. This is this book made famous by Jack Vettriano's Illustrator's Figure Reference Manual. It's an amazing book, actually. It's got a whole variety of photographs of different subject matter of figures. Here they're dancing, various other situations in which the models have posed and are viewed from eye level or from above eye level or below eye level. This one here in particular, I think, is the one that was made famous. I think someone who, a fellow but maybe slightly jealous artist of Jack Vettriano's, told the papers that this was where he got his singing butler's image from. But of course, everybody knew that Jack Vettriano worked for photographs. They just didn't know which ones in particular he'd used. So it's a book that illustrators can use to get these different poses, and I'm going to share some of those images with you. The first thing that I was thinking of doing, so I've been dying to do something with snow because it's been so amazing. So I got some pictures of the meadows today, because I would like to make, if I'm going to give you any kind of help with this theme, I think the idea of picture making and really working on the atmosphere of a particular image could be something that I can guide you with and that you could aim for. And I thought the snowy scene of the meadows, in a way, I'm thinking Romeo and Juliet and a world of their own, a kind of if not enclosed, but yes, a world of depicting the atmosphere of a kind of enclosed world of the lovers. And I thought with the snow, there's that kind of muffled quality to the air and a sort of magical quality, of course, because it happens so rarely. And I thought I would try this as a setting for my lovers. So how am I going to approach that? I've started to do some drawings, and I've taken some figures from this book. I'm sure you'll find some of your own figures, but we had this young woman sitting sideways on a chair, so I thought perhaps she could be on the bench somewhere. I thought, looking across at the meadows, the benches in the middle of the snowy landscape would be a good setting to put my lovers. So I worked a bit with this figure of a woman seated sideways on a chair, and there was another one of a gentleman walking with a stick. So I've just done some little studies of these figures. I've got to decide different things, for example, how I prefer him. Where should I get that one? Yes, I think I want this one. I've got to decide things like how big am I going to make these figures? Where am I going to place them in my composition? So I've started just working with these figures in charcoal, drawing some silhouetted shapes, and then I'm going to move them around a bit on my snowy meadows setting. So I might, just to save you the boredom of watching me work, I might pause while I cut them out, and then I'll move them around on my setting. So I've cut them out so that I can move them around and see how they work in my setting. So they're obviously a particular size, and the scale I'm wondering about firstly. So in a way it's a bit of theatre really. I'm currently working with this seated woman. I think actually the bench, maybe the bench will go there. And I've got this chap approaching her. They're quite large. I'm just trying to think about the way in which their scale relates to the setting. I mean, I could have done much smaller figures off in the distance. That would give a different atmosphere. Maybe I'll just do that, just so that I've got them there as a reference. If I had quite small versions of them, not there, I want them over here. So I'm just copying that. If I had a small figure here, on the bench, and then another one over here approaching. Wait a minute, it's got to be a bit bigger perhaps, a bit taller. Approaching. Good to have these shadows. Is that more interesting to have them far away and we, the viewers, at a distance from them, so that they really are in the world of their own? I don't think so. That could work, but I think I'd be more interested in having, I think from the point of view of executing a painting, I'd quite like to be able to work with these figures. So I think I would go for that scale. I think there's something about having the trees, having them a bit between the trees, I think is quite helpful at keeping them in their own world. I think the shadows are quite helpful as well. I think they create a certain drama, but I think I would probably make him a bit bigger so that he would be approaching and moving towards her. So that's what I do with that setting, using the snow to create a certain atmosphere. But it does strike me that it's all a bit cold. The colours, do I want a different sort of atmosphere? Then another idea that I had, just thinking of, well actually I included the Klimt image, the kiss, on the email. There's all that amazing pattern, this sort of jewel-like pattern and texture that he's created around the figures. I think I'd read somewhere that Klimt very often painted his figures. He painted a naked figure and then would put that sort of texture, pattern, colour on top. And in the case of the kiss, I mean, they're virtually drowning in it. It's just the heads and hands are visible. But underneath is a sort of faithfully drawn, anatomically faithful figures. So in response to that, I was looking again at the dancers that I showed you at the beginning. And I thought what I would like to do is a dancing couple. And I'm just doing it on some wrapping paper. So I have some ink and a stick. And I thought I would just draw directly onto that. I've got some brown ink here. I don't know what that'll do. So I'm just trying another study again, and I just liked the idea of them being somewhere here in the kind of magical Christmas paper world. So I'm just trying to show you some varied approaches, and if you start with some studies and maybe mix your media a bit, think about setting, think about atmosphere, you may, well, yes, if you have a kind of open-minded approach, you'll hopefully make some discoveries, you'll do things quickly and fairly loosely so that you're not sort of bound by anything in particular until you see how it starts to work. So I'll pause again, I'll just do a little bit more drawing to this, let it dry, and then I'll try some colour on top, maybe a bit of pastel, just to see what that does. You can see my proportions are a little bit dubious, so let's get that sorted. So my ink is dry and I'm going to put a little bit of pastel on to bring these figures out. I also feel like it would be good to have something darker down here. This is the same wrapping paper. So I'm keeping up the pattern. I wanted to just get a little bit of depth. So my figures are actually dressed in white, aren't they? So I don't know how well this is going to take. So I'm just blocking in a little bit of light and white to help these figures emerge from their setting. But because I'm trying to, what is the atmosphere I'm trying to create? I'm trying to create a world of their own atmosphere. So I don't mind if they're a little bit absorbed into their setting. So I don't tend to do things like this. Obviously, this is not a purely realist piece of work. And if I was to paint it, I wouldn't necessarily... I think I would try and find a way of representing the pattern and texture of the paper. But not, yeah, I don't know, I would get somewhere between this highly patterned effect that the wrapping paper gives me and something a little bit realistic. But I think what I'm coming to the conclusion about what I've got so far is that the fact that it's not very realistic, these large snowflake patterns, is important. It's important to create the atmosphere that I'm looking for. So rather, old Vetriano put his couple on a beach, which is an interesting setting, but I'd be more interested in trying to emulate something of this fantastical quality that the wrapping paper gives me. But I would go for some form and realism in my figures. So that's another possibility. I've also got some other bits of wrapping paper. I don't know if they've got any. Maybe actually it'd be quite nice to cut some trees. That's what I'll do. I'll just do one. Yes, I might investigate. Wait a minute. Turn around. Oh, it's come out the wrong way. Stop. Yes, investigate some sort of magic forest, perhaps. Right, so that's that idea, and I just got one more to suggest. When in doubt, try charcoal rub away. So there's one more set of pictures I thought I would work with. It was a couple at a table. Here they are. And I thought by starting with the charcoal rub away beginning, I can do something almost a bit chiaroscuro-like. I can put them into a dark space and use controlled definition as a way of creating an atmosphere. So there's another set of images of a couple at a table, seen from different angles. So starting with them in charcoal, I would then, if I can find my eraser, start to subtract a bit and see he's got a light jacket. She might have light on her face. There might be quite a lot of light around her. So my point again about trying to create an atmosphere, it so often happens with these tonal drawings that through tone you've got an instant atmosphere, and if you just work with shapes you can have a limited amount of definition, and as you work, if you start to see something developing, you can create an atmosphere of something, a little bit more archetypal. These lovers could be any lovers, anywhere. So I don't have to be too... In fact, the less specific I am, the better. And then maybe into that setting, I might find some other ways of making the atmosphere, of enhancing the atmosphere. I'm back to the forest again. Table legs, their own legs, do they matter? Maybe they don't matter to this particular mood that I'm after. So there we go. I hope that's enough ideas to help you get started. I've only been sketching, and I think it's worth you spending the time on playing around with some different possibilities before you get to paint, and maybe you'll be interested not so much in paint but in a mixture of media that allow you to create a picture, a composition, but where there's a very particular mood or narrative or theme that you want people to grasp. So I would make that your aim, rather than the necessarily the finished product. Okay, well, I hope it goes well, and I'll see you tomorrow.